It's one of the deadliest attacks on our forces in Kashmir in our recent times. And as the nation comes to terms with this giant loss, we also pray for the families of those whose lives have been changed forever. Those wives, those sons and daughters, those parents, they have lost their loved ones tonight, gone forever, killed in the line of duty. An entire bus, viewers, full of brave soldiers was blown up when a vehicle that was full of kilograms and kilograms of explosives just rammed into a convoy of 78 vehicles and about 2,500 soldiers. If anything, this should give our politicians a few sleepless nights. Those who play filthy politics at the cost of our soldiers, those who don't think twice about using our soldiers and our forces for their own political benefits, must think tonight about the damage that they're doing to their own citizens, to their own forces, to their own soldiers. Tonight we will speak about what we should actually be doing as a nation, what our government and politicians should be doing as a nation to strengthen our forces, to minimize violence, to be able to deal and tackle with such terror attacks, to bring about some peace in our country. That will be our focus, not any kind of rhetorics and not any kind of jingoism. Before we go to our panelists to get their extreme views, the expert views on what needs to be done, here is what our Home Minister said after this deadly terror attack.
आज कश्मीर में हमारे CRPF के बहादुर जवानों पर जो आतंकवादी हमला हुआ है वो पाकिस्तान स्थित और उनके द्वारा संरक्षित आतंकवादी संगठन जैश-ए-मोहम्मद ने किया है, जिसकी मैं और सारा देश भर्त्सना करता है। इस आतंकी हमले का समुचित जवाब देने के लिए सारा देश एकजुट है। हम अपनी जिम्मेदारियों को अच्छी तरह समझते हैं और देश की जनता को यह भरोसा देते हैं कि इस पर जो भी कार्रवाई करना आवश्यक है उसे करने में हम कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ेंगे। CRPF देश का एक बहादुर और अग्रणी सुरक्षा बल है। देश की सुरक्षा और संप्रभुता की रक्षा के लिए इस बल ने समय समय पर बहुत कुर्बानियां दी हैं। जम्मू और कश्मीर में शांति और व्यवस्था कायम रखने में इस बल के योगदान की जितनी भी प्रशंसा की जाए वह कम है। आज कृतज्ञ भारत उन सभी वीर जवानों को जिन्होंने अपने प्राणों का बलिदान दिया है, उन्हें अपनी श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करता है तथा इस कठिन घड़ी में उनके परिवारों के साथ पूरी तरह खड़ा है। हम शांति और अमन को भंग करने वालों के नापाक मंसूबों को नाकाम करने के लिए पूरी तरह से दृढ़ संकल्पित हैं। हम देश को आश्वस्त करना चाहते हैं।
Let's say good evening to our panelists. Rahul Jalali, senior journalist, joining us this evening. I've also got Brigadier Hemant Mahajan with us. But first of all, let me go across to former Army Chief General VP Malik joining us this evening. And I appreciate, sir, that you've joined us at this hour. I want to begin by asking you what you made of the method and the modus operandi that was used in the attack today. It's been a while since we saw this kind of a suicide car blast attack take place in Kashmir.
Tanvi, firstly I must say that it's a very serious, a very tragic incident that has taken place. And I would say it is first of its kind that has taken place, because never before have we seen a car laden with explosives driving along a bus full of CRPF men going in a convoy that goes and bashes into the vehicle. And then also you have firing on the spot from people who were probably on the either side of the road with rifles and all. This is the first of its kind that I have come across in India. It's something like this may have taken place in Afghanistan or Syria or other places. So it's a very serious incident that has taken place, new tactics, new method that has been employed, and therefore it requires detailed investigation. It requires detailed security safety steps to be taken, road opening, as well as how our troops travel on the road. And also it requires then what changes do we want to make in our operational planning, both within Kashmir as well as across the line of control, because these kind of incidents cannot take place unless there is full support from the other side. Now, the whole thing can be divided into two: the military action or the security forces action and the civilian actions. Let's not forget that over the years now almost, we have left the security forces to fend for themselves. Their job is primarily to control the violence, to get after the terrorists, either to make them surrender or to kill them. But in South Kashmir in particular, we all know that radicalization has been going on for a very long time, and it has been supported by the political elements in Kashmir. And that needs to be handled. It cannot be done by the security forces. It has to be done by the political parties of Kashmir in particular, and also the administration, etc. The security forces have no role in trying to get rid of radicalization that has been going on. And today's incident is also a result of that radicalization and motivation that has gone on behind the scenes, you know. So I do hope that while I have all my condolences and my sympathies for the people who have been martyred today, but I also hope that the politicians in particular will take the right steps, and the military will also review the whole situation. I think South Kashmir requires more troops with the kind of situation that has been going on. So maybe we'll have to strengthen our security forces in South Kashmir in particular.
General Malik, you said that this needs to be taken seriously and treated now differently, even by our politicians. What should the political establishment's role and plan of action be, which will enable our army or our forces in together to deal with this kind of an attack in the current situation in Kashmir then?
Look, you know, in these situations, politicians, the security forces, and the administration, they all have to work together. Now, we have a unified command situation, unified command headquarters in Kashmir. I don't know whether there is enough coordination taking place there. And I definitely know for sure that the politicians, instead of supporting the security forces, have been repeatedly, in fact, condemning their action and thus affecting their morale. They seem to be more on the side of the militants and not so much on the security forces, who are doing a very, very difficult job. Now, let me talk to you about this convoy that are going on. Earlier, the convoys had a straight run and there was no interference accepted. No other vehicles came in line with them or from the other side. But under the pressure of the politicians, we have now permitted, let the convoys run and let also the civilian vehicles run. And that is how this incident has taken place. And the security forces who were on road opening party, they have not been able to check the civilian vehicle which came alongside. So they have to work together, and everyone has a proper role. The politician has to look after the radicalization aspect, the proper administration aspect, and the security forces have to go after the militants who have taken gun in their hands, and the administration have to make sure that the administrative problems of the local people are resolved as soon as possible. So they all have to work together, and as far as politicians are concerned, they have in fact left the security forces to fend for themselves, which is not a good thing, which has been going on for last almost about 2-3 years now.
Yes. In fact, General Malik, usually when we have a attack of this magnitude, there is some amount of, very strong reaction that comes that also leads to warmongering to a certain extent. But I don't want to go down that road. What I do want to ask you is, we did one surgical strike, which is successful. But do you think to have a longer, more impactful result, we should have had perhaps a few more to cause a larger dent?
Look, Tanvi, there are no formulas when you are handling a situation like this. And yes, the surgical strike, when it took place, it was more to send a message, which probably has not been heeded too, obviously. And I do not want to speculate what kind of actions we should take across the line of control, but I am sure that people must, in Delhi, South Block and North Block, they must be thinking about it already. So we have to think of actions inside Kashmir Valley as well as across the line of control. As far as inside the Kashmir Valley is concerned, I have just mentioned to you that those steps are required. But on the other side, I don't wish to speculate, but I hope some action will be taken.
Yes. General Malik, we also, found out that there was an intel advisory that was issued just a few days ago telling forces that if there is any movement, they should be extra vigilant because there were reports of a possible IED blast. But this magnitude, especially because Kashmir was completely snowed in, completely cut off from all angles. There was zero movement, zero connectivity, and just a couple of days after things begin to improve, for this kind of an attack, reports suggest that this vehicle was carrying over 100 kgs of explosives. Does that concern you, that the terrorists were ready and prepared and came out with this magnitude of ammunition on them?
Yes, the way security forces have been trying to get an upper hand over the violence in South Kashmir, I did expect something. I anticipated this. I don't know about the intelligence reports. They may have been. Unfortunately, intelligence reports are seldom very specific. They give in a very general terms. But that notwithstanding, the fact is, with the kind of activities that has been going on against the terrorists, one would have anticipated that something of this nature can take place. And now it's a matter of investigation as to how so much of explosives were collected, how a vehicle got ready, how a particular person was motivated to get into a fidayeen action. So all those things, I hope they will be investigated in more detail. Now, as far as the security on the road is concerned, we do have road opening parties. In fact, it is the job of security of the CRPF itself. But then, as I said, the right step in South Kashmir requires that you do not permit civilian traffic when a convoy is passing. But that we have, under the pressure of the politicians, not stopped. And they have been going on. And that was made use of by this particular vehicle which bashed into the CRPF convoy.
Well, it is really unfortunate, and I think the entire country will be mourning the loss of these brave 44 lives. General Malik, I appreciate you taking the time out and speaking to us and sharing your expert views on how you see this incident and the current situation. Thank you so much for speaking to us here on Mirror Now. We've also learned that Jaish-e-Mohammed, in fact, has come out and claimed responsibility for this attack. In fact, there are a few videos that are going viral, but we're not going to show you those videos. Home Minister has also said that Jaish-e-Mohammed is behind this attack, which is also a very, very important factor because this is a very, very dreaded terrorist group. This is a terrorist group that on a global level, India has been wanting a crackdown on. But because of Pakistan and China, we've not been able to do that. Every time we even push at United Nations, they try and block and veto our entire proposal. And as a result, not only did Jaish-e-Mohammed attack our parliament in 2001, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Azhar Masood also plotted the Pathankot airbase attack, also plotted the Uri army camp attack, which was also one of the deadliest we had seen in that region until today. And now they seem to be claiming responsibility for this as well. We'll go across to our panelists. Let's say good evening to Rahul Jalali again and Brigadier Hemant Mahajan, Dilip Trivedi, former DG of CRPF. Mr. Trivedi, I'm going to come to you first. We did have a shorter conversation earlier in the evening, but do you agree with what General Malik just said, that we opened up this road to the forces and to the civilians at the same time without having to first sanitize that entire highway. And perhaps we should be looking into those protocols now to ensure such casualties don't happen again.
You see, Tanvi, the security is security forces create an environment of a kind where where these kinds of attacks should not take place. And if for political reasons we start interfering with our security forces, we start interfering with what our security forces are doing on the ground, it certainly is going to hamper the environment, security environment. Not only this, there are so many other instances. For instance, the stone pelting on the soldiers, on the CRPF jawans. Or so. There are so many this thing where when the politicians start feeling that there is some normalization taking place, they say, okay, get rid of this, okay, stand back, don't do this, don't do that. And, you know, it's sort of, while it's also demoralizing for the forces, but it gives these other people a kind of a upper hand where they feel that they can take an extra step. And definitely, if when convoys move, there is a system of sanitizing the area by deploying road opening parties who check for IEDs and other things, because that is what has been primarily used so far. That is how they've been attacking the security forces, through IEDs or through hurling of grenades and opening fire on them. So definitely this particular attack, as far as my memory goes, is the first of its kind where they've used a human bomb and ram into a convoy. So it has taken the security forces off guard, definitely. But more stringent, this is something which we'll have to again think, you know, we'll have to recalibrate our preparations for movement of convoys and for other areas, because this is a new dimension that has been added now. So definitely it does hamper, yes, if the roads are sanitized, if the public is not allowed at that point of time when convoys are moving, it creates better security for the forces. But I don't know how far that is going to work in that area. So maybe we'll have to use other issues like having unmarked vehicles in which they travel so that the vehicles are not identified, use a different time of movement when there's very minimal traffic on the road. So some other protocols will have to be worked out, keeping in mind that this new form of attack has taken place.
Yes, and perhaps that will also need a rethink, going back to the drawing board as well, to analyze where we have reached and what this current situation is. Brigadier Hemant Mahajan, do you think this will need us to review also our protocols, and perhaps there is a camp that is saying tonight that maybe some amount of complacency set in. There were a lot of voices that was saying, especially from the political front, that we have successfully brought down the number of attacks, the number of casualties in the last few months. Do you agree with that line of thought?
Well, just before me, General Malik, the former Chief of Army Staff, had brought out very valid points, and presently I heard the ex-DG CRPF talking of many issues. What I want to talk about is that when any incident takes place, at times it gets out of turn importance than what it deserves. What is important today is, the bigger issue is, in this particular case, when an attack is taken place, certain mistakes would have been made. I am sure investigations will be done, countermeasures will be taken, and this kind of attacks will be avoided in the future. If you look at the history of these kind of attacks, Pakistan does not get adequate number of terrorists who will go in for suicide attack. If you see in Kashmir itself, the last attack, which can be termed as a suicide attack, took place almost about 2 years back, because no terrorist wants to die. So frankly speaking, this kind of attack being repeated will take its own time. However, the important point is, or which is the most important point is, that the terrorists are getting help in the Kashmir Valley, and General Malik spoke about it, radicalization which is taking place there. So the larger issue is, just by taking 1 or 2 steps, things are not going to be helped. We have to fight this battle against terrorism on multiple fronts. And the point that I would come to is, today there are a large number of overground workers who become surveillance elements for the terrorists, who tell you as to which convoy is moving, when it is moving from. Then when a vehicle of this nature comes, there are a lot of people who would have helped it. So I think the need of the hour is to tackle it on a multiple front. The radicalization which is spreading in the valley, how youth need to be de-radicalized. There's a whole material written on it, on perception management, on psychological warfare. The only problem is that presently this perception management or de-radicalizing the youth, this action is being taken only by the security forces, army, to some extent CRPF, etc. But the other people, meaning the Ministry of, let's say, Ministry of Home Affairs, Information Broadcasting Ministry, Doordarshan, various newspapers, you have to launch an all-out attack against radicalization by trying to focus on the youth who get radicalized, by focusing on the parents who are not able to stop their children from going onto the path of destruction, the society which does not take care of its youth, and so on and so forth. So that's a separate subject by itself, and that I'm sure has to be done in a bigger manner. Presently, only the security forces are doing it. That is my whole concern. It is the job of Government of India. Why was Doordarshan made? Why was All India Radio made? Why was Ministry of Information Broadcasting made? Why were you had agencies like PTI and UNI? Their job is to give a correct perspective when a wrong narrative is being given. So de-radicalization program has to be run in a big way. Second issue is that a lot of this radicalization takes place online, that is via the media called internet, social platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Imagine we consider ourselves to be a superpower as far as information and technology is concerned, and we have not been able to stop this radicalization which is taking place online. What a shame for a country of our expertise. We export information technology to the rest of the world. The time is come to stop all this kind of a radicalized form of writing on any form of social media. One method is to stop it, and second method is to find out the kind of youth, kind of organizations, kind of people who are giving information that army is coming in this particular area for coordinate search. Come there, messages get passed on by the overground workers, messages get passed on to the terrorists. All their administration takes place on the social media. For God's sake, let us stop it. Now today we get the news that internet has been banned for, I think, next 24 hours or 48 hours.
Yes,
this is reactive.
Yes.
Why can't we catch the people who are sort of involved?
Yes, absolutely, Brigadier Mahajan. Like you were saying, these are reactive measures which are short.
We need to catch.
Absolutely. We need a larger policy. We need a clearer path as to how we will go about dealing with this situation. Frankly, so far, the only policy we have seen which has been the focus is whether to talk to Pakistan or to not to talk to Pakistan, whether to attack Pakistan or not attack Pakistan, to directly attack or indirectly attack. But what are we doing to heal and to de-radicalize and to fix the problem within our own boundaries is perhaps also something that the government and the politicians have to look at. And you rightly pointed out, Brigadier Mahajan, that's also something that even our forces are doing. They are the ones who are still holding these camps within the local community and trying to reach out to them and spread awareness. Rahul Jalali, thank you for patiently waiting. You've heard what everybody else had to say. You are well versed with that area, the terrain there, what the setup is. What's your own view of the kind of attack we have seen today?
Well, what worries me is not just that there is an attack which has happened, but an attack of this magnitude, it's never happened before. This is not, let me also correct a lot of people, this is not the first Fedayeen attack to take place in Kashmir. This is the second one. The first one happened in the year 2000, which was again done by Jaish-e-Mohammed, and it happened on the doorstep, or actually the outer gate of the main cantonment in Srinagar. It's an area called Badami Bagh. But the difference was that did not become a trend. This time, this threatens to become a trend in Kashmir. And signs of this were there for everyone to see. There was enough intelligence input on Fedayeen concentration in Kashmir. In 2017, late 2017, reports had come that Jaish, the brother of Masood Azhar, the chief of Jaish, was trying to recruit Fedayeens in Kashmir Valley. He's based in POK. Most of these videos you talk about the young man who's supposed to be the Fedayeen attacker, the videos which are circulating all over, even you've got it, are coming from POK. We've done nothing about it. Secondly, if you had monitored Pakistan television over last year. There were generals of Pakistan, especially a former ISI general who time and again would talk about launching Fidayeen attacks in Kashmir and recruitment towards this process. So Pakistan was doing its work. Unfortunately, our security planners do not forget our past. Look, till 90s, there used to be threats of these attacks. We had a security apparatus in place, but subsequently, relief was given. Secondly, if you look at South Kashmir, everyone knows what happens. Where did this attack take place? And let me correct you, it was not just 100 kilograms of explosive, it was 350 kilograms of explosives which were brought in this safari, and this was hurled at the CRPF convoy. So the look at 350 kilograms of safari penetrates a security setup in South Kashmir. And do you know, South Kashmir is highly full of security, and all the terrorist attacks are taking place there. So this, how did it get there? Where was the security lapses? Secondly, my fear is when everyone talks of radicalization, yes, we're talking of radicalization, and they're absolutely correct. Radicalization is a reason. Radicalization has been taking place in Kashmir for quite some time. We all are aware of it. What have we done about it? Look at this. 1 year ago, the local security apparatus came out with this information that they have identified 80, more than 80 handlers of WhatsApp groups which are working for Pakistan. What has been done to those 80 who were identified? So all these things, there was enough, if you know the ground in Kashmir, there was enough information available that Jaish is starting to change the course of Kashmiri terrorism or terrorism in Kashmir. Pakistan is behind it. The centers are in POK. We are well aware of it. Secondly, what worries me, that some years ago, there was a Charlie 2 who was supposed to launch terrorist attacks in Kashmir. The Indian army chased him and he was chased out of Kashmir. What worries me now, that this man, Adil, whose name has come about,
yes,
it seems he's from a region called Pulwama, the suicide bomber, and it seems that he had received training within Kashmir. That's the initial reports. If this is happening, I really worry.
yes,
Because this should not become a trend, because then we are not far from reaching Afghanistan. That's what we've got to seriously think about. Things like how do we travel on roads are no solution to it. The entire security apparatus has to be reworked. Let's not allow Fidayeen attackers to come up in Kashmir. It has to be political, it has to be security, everything should work together. And for God's sake, let's stop pointing fingers at each other. It's too serious a matter, this attack, for us to start pointing fingers at our own selves. Let's stop it. Let's think of a strategy.
In fact, but unfortunately, Mr. Jalali,
move from Pakistan.
very soon what will happen is we will go down that path of political bickering and politicians pointing fingers at each other, and we will completely forget what the genuine lessons are to be learned out of this and what needs to be done on ground. Like you pointed out, like General Malik said, that we perhaps also need more forces in South Kashmir right now to look at what's happening on ground. Now, we were earlier referring to Jaish-e-Mohammed and the fact that Jaish-e-Mohammed has still been getting full backing of Pakistan and also China. MEA's first reaction, official reaction on this attack has come out. And MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, the Indian government has named Jaish-e-Mohammed now as the perpetrator, who have full freedom, the statement says, who have full freedom from Pakistan. The government is demanding, the Ministry of External Affairs is demanding that Pakistan take action against the Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists and the terror infra setup that has been made there. Of course, all of this being led by the man on your screens right now, Masood Azhar. India has been repeatedly wanting him to be declared as an international dreaded wanted terrorist by the UN Security Panel, and that's where Pakistan and China repeatedly keep blocking it. And because we were talking about Jaish-e-Mohammed, here are the two other aspects. There was a attack that took place on November 6, 2018. In this encounter that took place, the forces managed to kill this terrorist called Talha Rashid. He is reportedly the nephew of Maulana Masood Azhar. On November 18th, roughly 12 days after that, there was another encounter that took place in North Kashmir in Bandipora. One of the terrorists who was killed there, Owaid, is reportedly the nephew of Zakir Rahman Lakhvi. So the signs have been there. The revival of Jaish-e-Mohammed as a group and their renewed focus on Kashmir has been there. Have we missed those signs or have we not reacted fast enough, Brigadier Mahajan?
Yes, what happens is generic intelligence inputs definitely come that Jaish-e-Mohammed is reviving itself. If you look at Kashmir, Kashmir Valley, there are three kinds of groups: the Hizbul Mujahid, the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Toiba. Frankly speaking, just because instead of A group, B group is attacking, the tactical things at a ground level do not really change, you know. It's okay to say that this chap is responsible, that person is responsible, but our method of ROPs, our method of counter-terrorist operations, our method of counter-infiltration operations, nothing changes. So that really is not the issue. Important issue is that while we were very successful in 2018 in eliminating 280 terrorists, still the fact remains that the number of terrorists active today in the Kashmir Valley, the accepted figure is between 200 to 250. That means the terrorists which get eliminated, they are replaced by somebody. This particular attack I would not worry too much, because after this countermeasures will be taken, and Pakistan is not going to find it easy to find terrorists who are going to go in for suicide mission. In fact, that is the biggest problem, finding a person who is willing to go on a suicide mission, because terrorists want to live and they want to complete their 2 years tenure and go back happily to their families. So while an odd attack can take place, I would not exaggerate the capability of Jaish-e-Mohammed in carrying out this attack. What the point at issue that I was making earlier, and I want to make it right now, is we should look at terrorism as whole. Jaish-e-Mohammed is just a part of it. We need to stop money supply coming to the terrorists. We need to find out overground workers who are helping the terrorist network. We need to ensure that radicalization that takes place on the internet is stopped. We need to ensure that radicalization that takes place in the madrasas and in the mosques is stopped. We need to ensure that when security forces go in for operations, anybody who goes into stone throwing, they should not be treated as misguided youth, but they should be treated as supporters of terrorism, because Indian Army has lost number of officers and jawans who could not be evacuated because the stone pelting crowd stopped them. So time is now come to ensure that anybody who indulges into stone pelting activities and tries to stop military operations, a strict action is again taken against them. Unfortunately, the political parties in Kashmir Valley, the National Conference, the PDP, survive on what is called as soft separatism. I would not call it soft separatism. I would put it rather crudely and say that they are supporters of terrorists. The kind of psychological pressures that are put on the security forces when they go in for operation are tremendous. You would have heard of a case of Major Aditya Kumar. His father had to go to Supreme Court and tell that for God's sake do not launch an FIR against my son. He is doing his normal duty which the army or the government of India has told him to do. I think the need of the hour is to give enough psychological support to our security forces. They should not be under the impression that if they do something, an FIR will be launched against them, an action will start against them. This is a way of human rights groups to reduce the military and the operational efficiency of security forces. This must be stopped. The human rights groups which are hyperactive in Kashmir Valley, and they are not only in social media, they are also in the print media.
Yes.
You see a lot of their faces even on the mainstream media. I don't understand why the mainstream media gets them in the first place to hear some nonsense which is utter nonsense. We need to act against these human rights groups. So this kind of an attack, the need of the hour is an all-out offensive against all forms of terrorism. This then only will we be able to succeed.
Well, I think Brigadier Mahajan,
against them, eliminate an odd leader here and there. They'll
Yes, sorry I
Yeah,
interrupted.
please go ahead.
I was just saying that I think while, all these so-called human rights activists or apologists or lobbyists can say what they want, the fact of the matter is that a lot of, I believe, the morale of our forces will be boosted and comes from what our governments and those in power do. Whether they only say or whether they also can translate it into action. And if those authorities are behind you and they are thinking about you and they're doing whatever is needed to be done to make your job easier and safer, then nothing else we genuinely should not really even give attention to any of that, or at least our soldiers should not. But here are some of the other facts. But from the year 2014 till 31st December 2018, there have been 1,213 incidents involving terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir. In these, 838 terrorists were neutralized. I'm right now quoting government data as was submitted in Lok Sabha. But just to add to it, from the South Asia Terrorism Portal, also roughly 360 soldiers were martyred in this much time as well. And that's not counting what has happened tonight. Before we move on, and I go across to Mr. Dilip Trivedi, I want to also play out an excerpt of a conversation that we had earlier today with the governor of Jammu and Kashmir. Faye D'Souza spoke to him just about an hour ago, and this is what the governor said about the fear and the question about certain lapses in intelligence. Take a look.
Satyapal Malik, the governor of Jammu and Kashmir, on the phone line right now. Mr. Malik, good evening, and thank you for giving us your time. Would you be able to give us a status or an update of the situation on the ground in Kashmir in terms of security at this point?
Security, as far as security is concerned, we have lost a big number of our brave soldiers. We are very sad. Our feelings are with their families. And we are worried about the people the jawans, the boys who are wounded. And total concern is that it should never be repeated. जो भी हमारी गलती हुई है, चूक हुई है, उसको हम सुधारेंगे, सिक्योरिटी रिव्यू करेंगे इन डे और टू. और हम ये मानते हैं कि इसलिए हुआ कि हमने 4 महीने में सक्सेसफुली टेररिज्म की कमर तोड़ दी थी, नई भर्ती नहीं हो रही थी, हर दिन 2-3 को हम डाउन कर रहे थे, पूरे चुनाव हो गए थे पार्लियामेंट उसके असेंबली म्यूनिसिपैलिटी के और पंचायत के, एक भी कैजुअलिटी नहीं हुई थी. तो इससे फ्रस्ट्रेट होकर पाकिस्तान ये चाहता था कि कोई बड़ा एक्शन इंडिया में होना चाहिए और उसने सक्सेसफुली इसको करा दिया. ये हमारी गलती, भूल, चूक जो भी कही हुई है उसके लिए मैं अपने आप को जिम्मेवार ठहराता हूँ.
सवाल पूछने में अफसोस होती है, आपने भी कहा कि लैप्सेस हुए हैं, भी हाईवे पेट्रोल में लैप्सेस हुए, चेकिंग में पेट्रोल हुए, और शायद the size of the contingent that or the convoy that was moving was also wrong. क्या इस इन्वेस्टिगेशन के बाद अकाउंटेबिलिटी होगी कि ये गलतियां किससे हुई थी और क्यों हुई थी?
नहीं, वो तो देखिए इंटर डिपार्टमेंट इंक्वायरी इसकी होगी, मुझे उस पर ओपिनियन नहीं देनी चाहिए, बट बिकॉज आई एम वेरी एजिटेटेड इसलिए मैंने दे दिया, अपनी बात राय कह दी है, क्योंकि मैं इस पे एक्सपर्ट भी नहीं हूँ, बट स्टिल आई फील कि ये ऐसा कर लेते तो ऐसा हो जाता.
So Dilip Trivedi, what is your own expert view? Even if there is an intel, a generic one that says, they could be an IED blast, would that have helped? What could have helped in this situation? What else could our soldiers have done?
You see, one of the biggest lapses which I feel has occurred is the fact that such a huge quantity of explosives have come into the valley and in South Kashmir, and they were not detected, or there was no murmur about the fact that this kind of explosive is moving around in that area, because this is unusual to get 350 kilograms of explosives for an act like this. So somehow there is some kind of a failure definitely there. What you're showing says that please occupy a place of deployment and all that. But these are routine been things being sent by the intelligence bureau, but there is no talk of a human bomb at any place. There is no talk of explosives being used in such high quantities and a car bombing kind of a thing. So I think somewhere, and you see, there is the local police which has its intelligence, there's the intelligence bureau, there is the state, this thing, and there are any number of intelligence agencies working there. So this definitely does point to some kind of a, somehow they have, these people who have planned this have managed to evade the intelligence agencies while doing their planning, which I think is something which requires a lot of concern. And the second issue is about, we talked about the size of the convoy, and it should not have been so big and it should have not been that. But you see, why convoys have been used in the valley since, in Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir since 1980s, because the convoy itself provides some security when they move together. One. Second, it is when the convoy is moving, before that the road opening party does its job of sanitizing the roads and making sure that there are no IDs and other things. So the moving of troops in a convoy was the done thing in Jammu Kashmir. So to say that the strength of the convoy was not right or not wrong, again, is something which in hindsight you can definitely say, but it was not something that was unusual there.
Yes.
So these are things that have to be kept in mind. And as I said earlier, I said that, you see, when things start normalizing, a certain amount of laxities is sort of passed down by the political actions by saying, okay, remove roadblocks, don't do so much of checking, allow the stone pelters to get away, don't fire on the stone pelters. So all this kind of laxes in, this messages coming from the top, for political considerations, for other reasons, that go easy, go easy, go easy. Somewhere it starts affecting the psyche of your staff, of your security forces, who also may at times feel that, okay, if things, we are asked to go easy, we are asked to go easy. So their mentality changes to that level where they start taking things too much for granted.
Right.
So all these factors combined have led to this situation today, and it is time now to review all this.
Yes, Mr. Kamar Agha, also defense expert, joining us this evening. Thank you for taking your precious time to speak to us. Mr. Agha, in your view, do you agree with what is also being said by our panelists here? And is this a wake-up call that, Jaish-e-Mohammed has revived and is stronger again now, and they're carrying out the kind of attacks that we weren't even expecting or anticipating anymore?
Yeah, they were very active last 6 months at least, and they were revived, no doubt about it, But the thing is that, we have seen the pattern of militancy. Sometime, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, comes in the front and Lashkar-e-Taiba goes into the background, or Hizbul Mujahideen comes into the side, So these are basically the Pakistan's proxy organizations, the proxies which are operating. The real culprit to me is Pakistani military establishment, which is behind them, and using these people, or these organizations, The problem is, they have become very active in Jammu and Kashmir for two reasons. One, they have their stakeholders there in the form of Hurriyat Conference Organization or extremist Islamic organizations operating there. They are supporting these or providing fodder to these militant organizations. Besides this, the mainstream political parties of Jammu and Kashmir have also failed to deliver. That is one of the major problems, in Jammu and Kashmir, which they have no charismatic leader at the moment in Jammu and Kashmir, In the absence of these leadership, the religious organizations are filling the gap, so that is another thing we'll have to look into it, A number of madrasas have opened, the schools, colleges, number of school colleges, they have systematically burned down, mainly the women schools and colleges. So they have been working, the Pakistani military establishment have been working very systematically in Jammu and Kashmir. The idea, they know that they cannot take back Jammu and Kashmir, so their plan is to destabilize, Afghanistan-like situation they are trying to create in that region,
And security forces so far, have succeeded in preventing happening that, they are very active. The military establishment, Pakistan understands, it cannot be able to achieve its objectives. So therefore, this type of attacks time to time, their purpose is to keep Kashmir at international news. Secondly, is to engage Indian Army over here, What is happening, if you look at the pattern, it's the Kashmiri youth is being killed,
yes,
and the Indian soldiers are being killed, Whereas the Pakistani military establishment is concerned, they're sitting quietly in Pakistan, having nice time, continue to support. And there are some other organized countries, which are supporting extremism in Jammu and Kashmir. That is another problem in the region. It's a very difficult task, in which the army is engaged. So I don't see any immediate solution to this, but I think time has come, that tough action should be taken, and target should be the Pakistani military establishment, We were hoping the Americans would impose sanctions on them because it was put on grey list. Now again, Americans have engaged Pakistan to help solve the problem in Afghanistan as a peacemaker, They are behind the Taliban talks, So ever since this new role Pakistan establishment military has availed, from Pakistan, it has become more emboldened, and time to come. It looks, the next few months we should be prepared for more such attacks,
Yes, and let's not forget that it's also election time, and Pakistan would also want to create as much trouble as they want in the run-up to that. Rahul Jalali, so the forces and our army and our soldiers will do what they have to do. The CRPF will do what they have to do to tackle the situation on ground. What is it that the political establishment needs to do to fix the situation on ground? Not just today, not just 2 months later, but as a larger policy, what are we missing?
Well, let me just sort of add on a point. All these talk about Pakistan responsible. We know Pakistan has been responsible for 30 years, and 30 years they've been going and doing this in Kashmir. Fact is, and let me once again convey this warning. What is the change in tack in Kashmir with this particular today's attack? This suicide bombing, which was one-off in Kashmir, happened only in 2000 and before that in 90, threatens to become a trend. And that's my worry. Look, there is enough indication that Jaish-e-Mohammed, why was Jaish brought in? Jaish was brought in about 2 years ago by Pakistanis, yes, to operate in Kashmir. Earlier it used to be Lashkar and Hizbul. Jaish used to operate in the early 2000s. This is what people I know because I've looked at it from 1990 onwards. Jaish used to operate in 2000. They wound up shop when Prime Minister Vajpayee made his initiative. They were asked to move away. And that's why last incident of suicide bombing was 2000. Jaish has re-entered because our security establishment is capable of taking care of conventional terrorism. So they've introduced a new element, which is suicide bombing. Secondly, which Kamar pointed out, there is an American exit going to take place from Afghanistan. And Pakistan is going to, or is doing it, changing the course of terrorism towards Kashmir. So the threat is that Kashmir is on the verge of being converted into another Afghanistan. One, you've heard enough of radicalization, I won't go into it. Third point, which we've got to take care of, that we have elections in April. The state assembly is going to polls. And the indication in Kashmir was, despite what you say, lot of young people were coming in. Shah Faisal came in and was going to contest elections. Similarly, there were lots of smaller groups. I'm not talking of the other two main conventional parties of Kashmir. There were lots of smaller groups who had organized themselves and were preparing to fight elections. Do you think these are going to come and fight elections, given the atmosphere of fear which Pakistan has spread through this attack? I doubt it. So first thing, we have to do, and this has to be done post-haste, is to restore confidence amongst all these small parties, among people who are individuals who are going to contest elections in the valley, restore confidence in them that they can contest elections. And this has to be done. The second thing which we have to do, and I believe Delhi has to play a major role in that, is to ensure that this Fidayeen attack does not become a trend. There are enough intel reports to suggest that these are the two essential issues. Political activity in Kashmir has always been like this since 1947 till today. And it's going to remain like this. If we could tackle it till 1990, and if we could again tackle it with Mr. Vajpayee's initiative in 2002 and onwards, there was a relative peace in Kashmir till 2008. So yes, I think we can also tackle it in future. And I think that will be done. But the point is, today, we are sitting on a situation which should not be, and it's a security situation, which should not be allowed to go out of hand.
Yes.
Why is it that every mainstream political party, Farooq Abdullah, Omar Abdullah, both have univocally condemned this act and offered sympathies and stood with the jawans who have lost their lives.
Mr. Jalali, their condemnation really means nothing, Mr. Jalali, because tomorrow when they have to go and fight for in the elections, yes, and then tomorrow when they have to go and ask for votes, they will start backing all of these groups. They will start backing every single person who's involved in boosting this kind of terrorism. So I don't think that what politicians say today will matter tomorrow. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. We'll have this conversation hopefully another day, but I'm completely run out of time, so I have to interrupt you there, Mr. Jalali. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining us this evening. Here is where things stand right now, viewers. As per the South Asia Terrorism Portal, 400 Indian soldiers have been martyred since 2014. 400. Add to that the civilian casualties of over 200 civilians have died in various terror-related incidents. We, of course, have killed a lot more terrorists. More than 900 terrorists have been gunned down. But is that really enough? Or are we just going in circles when it comes to our Kashmir policy? In Uri, when an army camp was attacked and 17 soldiers were martyred, we decided to take a bold step of going into the Pak terror camps and destroying those terror camps. But that was it. There was no more of that. And we went back round and round of talking to Pakistan and not talking to Pakistan, and increasing our military presence in Kashmir and then decreasing our military presence in Kashmir, and all kinds of politics played out. What's changed on ground? We are back to the situation we saw during Uri, 2 years before that, 2 years before that, 10 years before that. The only constant is that our soldiers are dying every single day. That the life of an average Kashmiri who wants to simply have a normal life has been destroyed day after day after day. And we are not even focusing on what needs to be done to end this nightmare. It's not just the job of a soldier to go and fight this battle. Yes, they will do that and they will continue to protect us. But it is the job of the government and our politicians to also come up with a solution, a long-term solution, because this has gone on for far too long. How many more lives are we willing to sacrifice for petty politics? Take a stand, make a policy, and then follow up on it. That's how this riddle, this problem, this nightmare will come to an end. Thank you so much for joining us on this debate.